Tony Gronick is the audio director on Far Cry 5, and before we are sitting down to talk here, you showed us a little bit of the process, and you gave us a sense of the composition and some of the choirs in there. What an expansive amount of work working on a game like Far Cry 5 must be.
Yeah, yes, it's huge. It's a big game. Yeah.
Is it something that you know a lot of people might not understand? Is that you're basically creating the world, and I think that there's so much that's taken for granted when we see a movie or a TV show or something like that. You obviously have to inject a tremendous amount of audio engineering to bring something to life on screen in any dimension, but when you're in a video game, you've got to think about every single element that we hear.
Yeah, exactly. If you have to make sure that the player, if he stealths in, if he drives his truck in, firing a weapon, you got to be prepared for anything.
Yeah.
So in a movie, you know, at this point the action's going to kick in. That's where I'll start the music, or that's where I'll have the big stinger. But with games, people play to just try and trick us, and so it's a lot harder and a lot more difficult.
What do you want people to hear and listen for when they're playing Far Cry 5?
I've always said when I work in audio, if it stands out, it's wrong. If I sit there and go, well, that's a cool sounding ambience, or that's a cool bird, then it's pulling me out of the situation.
Right, okay.
Very early in the game, when we were prototyping, it was hard for me to justify why this cult was running around, kidnapping, murdering, fighting, taking what they wanted. But as soon as I started thinking that, okay, they're doing God's work, they're doing what the Father wants, then I started thinking, okay, I'll put some music behind it. And when we put the music behind it, you could see why they were justified in their actions. Wow. You might not believe why they were doing it, but it made sense.
Tell me about meeting Dan and getting Dan involved with, composing for the game.
You know, when I'm looking for a composer, I'm not looking for video or a game composer, because when I look for a composer, I look for the sound.
Yeah.
And so I try not to be biased when I'm looking for a composer. I listen to games, I listen to movies, I listen to TV, and when I hear that certain something, that's when I go after them.
Was the process of writing the hymns something that you gave him direction on, or did he just come up with a bunch of things and then throw them back to you, or how did that all come together?
We did a back and forth about maybe some of the subject matters, recruitment, baptism, maybe singing about different family members. But Dan really took this by himself, and he wrote 10 songs, and I changed nothing on them. Wow. They were just, one of the things I asked them to do was try to have a double meaning. And what I mean by that is, if you know nothing about the cult and you hear this music, it should feel uplifting and beautiful. But once you know about the cult and you're not a cult member, then it should have a darker meaning to it. And I think he's done a great job on this.
Come brothers and come sisters, come weary and come strong. Come meet the man who reaps the land on which we walk upon. The time has come for judgment, but we ain't done nothing wrong. Join us so we all can sing along.
You worked on Far Cry 4, and we've gone to some pretty exotic locations and some, seen some beautiful scenery in the Far Cry franchise before. What makes this game distinct and unique and an exhilarating sort of new challenge for you?
Well, I know this area. I know Montana. I didn't know the other regions. It felt like in Far Cry 3 and 4, we just needed to really change the instruments we were using. Mm-hmm. But in Far Cry 5, we not only we knew the region, we knew what kind of music comes from that region, but we wanted to justify why the music was playing. And kind of what I mean by that is that in 3 or 4, the music was designed to tell you as the player how you should feel. But in 5, the music is designed to let you know that you're in cult area, this is the cult's music, you're feeling a little claustrophobic almost. I wanted to make sure that we played a piece of music and there was a reason for it.
And it's beautiful too. It's weirdly beautiful.
Yeah.
Was there? Were you? you're dealing with an ugly part of our world and our society, but juxtaposed against this beautiful music. Was that ever kind of weird for you as you were putting it all together?
I really thought that this music was going to be so annoying to the player that
Yeah.
they would want to kill cult members just to shut it up. And as we hired the band or the choir in Nashville to perform this, all of a sudden I find myself humming these in the shower, and my wife's like, "What are you singing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I can't talk about it right now, but come February you'll know."
Is there going to be a Far Cry 5 soundtrack album where we're going to be able to, listen to this music separate from playing the game?
Yes, there is. Originally, we weren't really thinking we would put any hymns on it, but the more I hear these things, the more I think people are going to want to hear them. So.
I mean, it's so weird that they are about all of this weird kind of climate, but they sound so great. They sound incredible.
You can sing all through the night, reach till the morning light. The sun cannot tell wrong from right. Jacob's gonna come and set those sinners free.
I can't wait to play and hear Far Cry 5. Great talking with you, Tony.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.